The Treaty of Constantinople, concluded in 1547, provided for the division of the Hungarian kingdom into 3 parts. The northwestern part of the Kingdom of Hungary came under the control of Austria, and the southeastern part was included in the Ottoman Empire. The Transylvanian Principality was also formed, which was in vassal dependence on the Ottomans. Having received part of the Hungarian kingdom, Ferdinand I of Habsburg did not plan to stop there and only waited for the right moment to establish control over Transylvania. Taking advantage of the fact that the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman I started a war against the Persian Empire, Ferdinand I in September 1549 managed to negotiate with the governor of the Transylvanian Principality, George Martinuzzi, who, on behalf of the young Transylvanian prince János Zsigmond, transferred the Transylvanian Principality to Austria in exchange for the duchies of Ratibar, Silesia and Opiln. The Sultan learned of this agreement only in March 1550, which infuriated him. Since it was necessary to act immediately, and the main forces of the Sultan were involved in the war with Persia, he ordered the commander of the Sheikh's Fehérvár garrison, Velid Shah, to raid the Austrian part of Hungary. Velid Shah, at the head of 4,000 soldiers, successfully plundered Austrian territory, but very soon his luck turned away from him, and near the city of Veszprém his army was defeated by the detachments of Pála Ratkai and Imre Teleki. Having received news of the defeat of the army of Velid Shah, the Ottoman Sultan in July 1551 ordered the Beylerbeyi of Rumelia Sokol Mehmed Pasha, together with the Bey of Smederevo, the Beylerbeyi of Bosnia, the Crimean Tatars and the army of the Moldavian Principality, which was in vassal dependence on the Ottomans, to invade the territory of Transylvania. In turn, Ferdinand, who was experiencing an acute shortage of money, was able to send to Transylvania only an army of mercenaries under the command of Giambattista Castaldo, reinforced by an army of the Hungarian estates, commanded by István Lázányi. On July 19, the mother of the young Transylvanian prince Isabella renounced the Transylvanian crown on behalf of her son, after which she left the country. On August 8, 1551, an Ottoman army of 80,000 soldiers, reinforced by 50 guns, crossed the Danube near the city of Petrovaradin. Having launched an offensive, the Ottoman army quickly occupies the city of Beki, the garrison of which consisted of only 200 soldiers. After some time, the Ottoman army approached the city of Lipa, which had strong fortifications and could hold the line for a long time. Local residents were frightened by the large Ottoman army and began to threaten the commander of the local garrison with death if he did not surrender the city. Having got into a difficult situation, Lipa's garrison left the city after spoiling all the guns and blowing up the powder store. Leaving the garrison in Lippi, the Ottomans continued their offensive and soon reached the city of Temesvar and laid siege to it. The defense of Temesvar was commanded by Lázányi, assisted by Spanish and Italian captains. Not wanting to lose control of the important city, Ferdinand sent help to its defenders in the form of 5,000 mercenaries. Realizing that even having received reinforcements, the Temesvar garrison would not be able to cope with the numerous Ottoman army, George Martinuzzi, who had become a cardinal thanks to Austrian aid, began a correspondence with Sokollu Mehmed Pasha and even sent tribute to the Sultan. At the same time, Martinuzzi, at the head of the army, besieged the city of Lipa, occupied by the Ottomans. On October 7, he launched an assault on the city, which turned out to be successful. At the same time, the commander of the Ottoman garrison managed, together with a detachment of 1,500 soldiers, to take refuge in the citadel. Having received news of the assault on Lipa, on November 16, Mehmed Pasha lifted the siege of Temesvar and led his army beyond the Danube. On the same day, Martinuzzi concluded a truce with the Ottomans and allowed the Ottoman garrison, which held the defenses in the citadel of Lipa, to leave the city. The Ottoman garrison of Lipa failed to successfully reach its territory, as it was overtaken and defeated by the detachments of Ferenc Horvat and Melchior Balaschi. Despite the fact that it was Martinuzzi's actions that made it possible to repulse the Ottoman invasion, he did not receive the deserved reward from Ferdinand. The fact is that Ferdinand began to suspect that Martinuzzi planned to become the Prince of Transylvania. Since Ferdinand did not plan to give the Transylvanian crown to anyone, he ordered Martinuzzi to be killed. His order was carried out on December 18, 1551. The truce between Austria and the Ottoman Empire did not last long. On February 24, 1552, a detachment of 5,000 soldiers under the command of Miklos Tat invaded the territory of the Ottoman part of Hungary and attacked the city of Szeged. The local Ottoman garrison was taken by surprise, but he still managed to take up defense in the citadel and send a message to the Beylerbeyi of Buda. While the people of Miklos Toth robbed the city and tried to drive the local garrison out of the citadel, the garrison of Buda came to his aid. Since the appearance of fresh Ottoman forces under the command of Ali Pasha came as a complete surprise to Miklos Toth, he was unable to put up serious resistance. In the ensuing battle, the Ottomans managed to defeat the enemy army, but Miklos Tat himself managed to leave the battlefield and avoid capture. Very soon, the Ottomans began preparations for a campaign in the middle course of the Danube. The fact is that the moment for the campaign was the most suitable, since the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V was busy fighting Moritz of Saxony and the French, because of which he simply could not help his younger brother Ferdinand. At the end of April, the Ottoman army advanced from Adrianople, and already in June 1552, it united with the detachments of Sokollu Mehmed Pasha near Belgrade. After a short rest, the united Ottoman army invaded the southern regions of Transylvania. At the same time, the Crimean Tatars invaded from the east, as well as the armies of the Wallachian and Moldavian principalities that were in vassal dependence on the Sultan. At the time of the Ottoman invasion, the Austrians could only rely on detachments of mercenaries. The fact is that, according to Hungarian laws, the king or prince could convene the militia, and Ferdinand himself, as well as his son, fought in Saxony at that time. On June 28, 1552, the Ottoman army reached Temeswar almost without meeting any resistance and laid siege to the city. The defenders of the city managed to repulse 2 assaults, but due to lack of food they were forced to capitulate. After the occupation of Temeswar, the Ottoman army continued its offensive. There was simply no one to resist the Ottomans, so on July 30 they occupied the city of Lippi, and already on August 11 the city of Karanshabesh. At the same time, the Ottoman governor of Buda, at the head of his army, began an invasion of Upper Hungary. In June, he managed to capture Veszprém, and already on July 9 he occupied the fortress of Dregi. The Ottoman offensive developed quite successfully. They managed to occupy the cities of Sechin, Halych and Gyarmat. Since Ferdinand did not plan to give Upper Hungary to the Ottomans, he gathered an army consisting of 12,000 mercenaries under the command of Erasmus Teufel, which was supported by 8,000 Hungarian soldiers. At this point, the army of Mehmed Pasha united with the army of the governor of Buda and continued the offensive. The Austrian army clashed with the Ottoman army near the village of Plaşti. The numerical superiority of the Ottoman troops ensured his victory. As a result of the outbreak of battle, the Austrian army was defeated, and Teufel himself was captured. Having launched an offensive, the Ottoman army reached the vicinity of the Şırnak fortress. The defense of the fortress was provided by a large garrison, which had 24 large guns at its disposal. The garrison was perfectly prepared for a long defense, but its commander decided not to fight the Ottomans, but simply fled. Left without a commander, the garrison of the Şırnak fortress was forced to surrender. The offensive of the Ottoman army developed quite successfully, and on September 15 it reached the Eger fortress, the defense of which was led by István Dobo. By the beginning of the siege, the opponents had the following forces. The garrison of Eger consisted of 2,300 soldiers and 6 guns. As for the size of the Ottoman army, some sources claim that its number was 150,000 soldiers. Actually, it is not. Most historians agree that the size of the Ottoman army did not exceed 40,000 people. Also at the disposal of the Ottoman command were about 150 guns, which included 16 large siege guns. The numerical superiority and the presence of a large number of guns guaranteed the Ottomans victory, but at the very beginning everything did not go according to plan. First of all, disputes began between the Ottoman commander Mehmed Pasha and the governor of Buda about who would lead the assault on Eger. They failed to agree, and they continued to command the united army together. After a short preparation, the Ottoman artillery began a massive bombardment of the fortress on September 17. This bombardment continued for 12 days. Since the Ottomans had an impressive amount of artillery, as a result of the bombardment, the fortifications of Eger were seriously destroyed. On September 29, 1552, the Ottoman army launched an assault on the fortress. Due to the rapid attack, as well as the fact that the walls of the fortress were partially destroyed, the Janissaries managed to take one of the towers. Attempts by the defenders of the fortress to knock out the Ottomans from the captured tower did not bring any result. Therefore, the commander of the garrison gave the order to destroy the fortress with cannon shots. After shelling with cannons, the tower captured by the Ottomans was destroyed and buried the Janissaries who occupied it under it, and the fallen fragments of the tower did not allow the Ottomans to penetrate inside the fortress. And they retreated to their original positions. The bombardment of the fortress continued, and after some time the Ottomans managed to get into the cathedral, which kept part of the gunpowder. As a result of the explosion, many defenders of the fortress were killed and wounded. Taking advantage of this, the Ottomans launched a new assault. A bloody battle broke out, during which the defenders of the fortress managed to repulse the onslaught of the Ottoman troops, who were forced to return to their camp. On October 12, severe cold began. In addition, food supplies in the Ottoman camp were running out, and the Ottomans began to suffer from hunger. Realizing that they would not be able to continue the siege for a long time, the Ottoman troops began a new assault on the fortress. The attack of the Janissaries was desperate, but the defenders of the fortress were not going to give up. They massively used bombs, which made it possible to inflict huge damage on the attacking enemy. By evening, the Ottomans, having not achieved any results, were forced to return to their camp. The Ottomans suffered serious losses, which is why the Janissaries refused to take part in a new assault. In this situation, it was impossible to continue the siege of the fortress, and on October 17 the Ottoman army left its environs. Despite the failure near Eger, the Ottomans managed to completely occupy Banat and form the Temesvar Eyalet on this territory. The fighting stopped temporarily. Already in the summer of 1553, ambassadors from the Transylvanian Principality arrived in Constantinople with a proposal to renew the vassal oath to the Ottoman Sultan and oust the Austrian troops from their territory in exchange for returning Temesvar to the Principality. But it was not possible to agree, since the Austrian detachments stationed in Transylvania quickly suppressed the pro-Ottoman movement. In 1554, the Ottomans increased their pressure on the Transylvanian Principality and demanded the return of János Zsigmond to the throne. Ferdinand, lacking forces to send to protect Transylvania, offered tribute to the Sultan in exchange for possession of Transylvania, but was refused. On December 23, 1555, Ferdinand declared to the State Assembly of Transylvania that he would not be able to provide military assistance against the Ottoman army. Therefore, already in January 1556, the State Assembly of Transylvania proposed János Zsigmond to return to the throne. The ease with which Ferdinand ceded Transylvania to the Ottomans is explained by the fact that he was preparing to become the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire after the abdication of his brother, and he was simply not up to the Transylvanian Principality. Realizing that all Ferdinand's thoughts were occupied with court intrigues, the Ottomans continued their offensive and occupied the Filjakovo fortress on June 13, 1556. Minor skirmishes continued for several years, and on January 31, 1559, peace was concluded between Ferdinand and the Ottoman Sultan. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Let's explore history together.